One of the things that seems to scare people about using vintage patterns is unprinted patterns. We're not used to them, and so most people don't know how to use them. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of unprinted patterns. Most early patterns were unprinted. That means that the pattern pieces were cut out of tissue paper and holes punched for any markings. I'm going to start with Simplicity 2732, which is a dress pattern from 1938. This one has a separate instruction sheet, but many of the earlier patterns had the instructions printed on the outside of the envelope. They were pretty sparse with no pictures, so you really needed to know what you were doing. This pattern has a single dress style with collar and sleeve variations, so it's one of the easier ones to interpret. This dress is really sweet, with a shirred front panel and high-waisted curved front skirt. An unusual feature of this pattern is that it has separate pieces for the long and short sleeves. Usually, there would be one piece with a cut line marked by dots. One of the nice things about unprinted patterns is that the pieces are already cut out. If the pieces are all separate, like this pattern, you do not need to trace them before cutting. You just need to press them to get started. Vintage patterns often use letters rather than numbers to mark them. The letter is punched out on each piece. Once you have all your pieces pressed, you need to understand the pattern markings. Let's go through them. Let's start with the sleeve. On this pattern, 2 large dots mark the straight grain, and a triangle of small dots mark the top center of the sleeve. On the back, 3 large dots in a row signify that the piece is cut on the fold, and a single line of small dots mark the back dart placement. Many vintage patterns do not draw out the darts. Rather, they mark the fold line and then tell you how wide the dart should be in the instructions. The front bodice is also cut on the fold. Rows of small dots mark the shirring on the front, and there is a line of small dots marking the ribbon placement for view 1. This pattern does not have pieces for the belt or the neck bow, but gives instructions on how to cut them out. There is also a note for how much ribbon is needed for the view with the ribbon trim. The instructions also include directions to make shoulder pads. There is no pattern for this, just dimensions and instructions on how to sew them up. Often the markings are uneven on the pattern and may be difficult to figure out. The drawing of the pattern pieces on the instruction sheet will help you here. You may notice that sometimes the notches will be different sizes. This does not mean anything. The machines used to cut out the pieces were just not as accurate as modern ones. Due to this, the patterns could be slightly off depending on how thick the stack of tissue paper was when they were cut. I hope this video has helped alleviate some of your fears of using unprinted patterns. We used a Simplicity pattern in this demo. The pattern markings will vary slightly depending on the pattern manufacturer. In my next video, I'll highlight some of the differences from different pattern companies. I put out new videos every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe to be notified when the next post comes out. Let me know if you have questions about working with vintage patterns below, and be sure to like if you found this helpful. Thank you.